Costco's $1.50 hot dog, the deal nobody is allowed to touch. There is a man alive today who threatened to kill his own CEO over the price of a hot dog. Not fired him, not demoted him, killed him. And the wild part is, it worked. 41 years later, that hot dog and a soda still cost the same $1.50 it did the day they launched it. Gas has gone up 9 times over. A stamp costs 6 times more. Your rent has probably doubled, maybe tripled. Every input that goes into making that hot dog, the beef, the bun, the labor, the electricity in the kitchen, has gotten more expensive too. But Costco's hot dog combo hasn't moved a single cent since Ronald Reagan's first term. Something that stubborn isn't an accident, and it isn't luck either. It's a decision somebody is dying to protect, on purpose, at a cost most companies would never accept. So let's find out who, and why, and what it's actually buying them. The man who said it was Jim Sinegal, the guy who co-founded Costco in 1983. The man he said it to was Craig Jelinek, who ran merchandising back then and later became CEO. At some point, Jelinek looked at the numbers on the food court and did what any executive would do. He suggested raising the hot dog price. Costs were climbing. The math didn't love it. Sinegal's answer became one of the most quoted lines in retail history. "If you raise the effing hot dog, I will kill you. Figure it out." Not, "Let's discuss it." Not, "Run the numbers again." Figure it out. That's not a pricing strategy. That's a religious commandment. And to understand why one man would go to war over a $2 lunch item, you have to go back to where this thing actually started. 1985. Costco opens a food court outside one of its warehouses, almost as an afterthought, a way to keep members shopping a little longer instead of leaving to grab lunch. They start selling a Hebrew National quarter-pound hot dog and a soda for $1.50. It's not a marketing stunt. It's not even a big deal internally. It's just a snack tucked by the exit, run by a handful of employees nobody in the corporate office is thinking about. Nobody in that room in 1985 thinks they're setting a price that will outlive fax machines, floppy disks, dial-up internet, and 3 different Costco CEOs. But that number gets locked in, and somehow it never gets touched again. To not once. Through recessions, through wars, through a pandemic that shut down half the country's supply chains. Which raises a question that should bother you more than it probably does. How does a company survive 4 decades of inflation without raising the price of anything? Here's the number that makes this whole thing insane. If Costco had simply let that $1.50 combo rise with inflation like literally every other product on Earth, it would cost around $4.65 today. That's not a guess. That's just what $1.50 from 1985 is worth in today's money. Meanwhile, walk through an actual Costco food court and watch the chicken bake climb from $2.99 to $3.99. Watch the soda-only price creep from 59 cents to 69 cents. Everything around the hot dog is quietly getting more expensive. The hot dog itself is frozen in time, like a museum exhibit surrounded by a store that keeps evolving. So if the company isn't magic, and it isn't losing its mind, there has to be an engineering explanation. And there is. It's just not the one you'd expect. For years, those hot dogs came from Hebrew National, a kosher brand that made a genuinely great product. But by the 2000s, Costco had a problem money couldn't fix. Hebrew National's kosher production facilities physically could not make hot dogs fast enough to keep up with how many Costco members were showing up hungry. You can negotiate price. You cannot negotiate the laws of physics on a factory floor. So Costco did something almost no retailer in America would seriously consider doing over a snack item. They didn't find a cheaper vendor. They built their own factory. In 2009, Costco switched the food court over to its own house brand, Kirkland's Signature, and started manufacturing the hot dogs itself, running its own plants to guarantee both the supply and the price. The new dog is actually bigger than the original, a quarter-pound plus of USDA choice beef, no fillers, no corn syrup. It's not a downgrade dressed up as a business decision. It's a better product that also happens to be cheaper to make because Costco cut out the middleman's profit margin entirely. Then they went after the other half of the combo. They swapped the old 12-ounce canned soda for a 20-ounce fountain drink. You get more soda, Costco pays less per ounce. That's not generosity. That's an engineer's answer to a marketing problem. And once you see that pattern, you start to realize the hot dog was never really about hot dogs. Here's the part that changes how you should think about this entire thing. Costco doesn't primarily make its money selling you a hot dog, or a rotisserie chicken, or a 30-pack of paper towels. Roughly 2/3 of Costco's profit comes from membership fees. The stuff on the shelves is almost a side character. The real product is the card in your wallet, and the food court's entire job is to make that card feel like it was worth it every single time you walk in. Costco moves close to 200 million of these hot dog combos a year, something like 3 for every member household, priced at or right around break-even. It is, by design, one of the only things in the building where the company is fine making almost nothing. Because the thing it's actually selling you in that moment isn't food, it's a feeling. And that feeling is worth more to Costco than $1 of margin ever could be. Skeptics love to say loss leaders are a gimmick, that they don't actually change behavior in any measurable way. Costco's membership renewal rate says otherwise. It sits around 90% year after year across more than 80 million paying households, which is a number most subscription businesses on Earth would trade their entire product line to get anywhere near. That renewal rate isn't built on rotisserie chickens or bulk toilet paper alone. It's built on thousands of tiny, repeated proofs that Costco keeps its word, and the hot dog is the cheapest, most visible proof of all. It costs a member almost nothing to test the promise. Walk in, hand over $1.50, and the company shows you, in real time, that it isn't quietly squeezing you like everywhere else is. Multiply that tiny moment of trust by hundreds of millions of visits a year, and you start to understand why Senegal was willing to threaten a homicide over it. That's why, in 2022, when a CNBC reporter asked CEO Craig Jelinek directly whether inflation would finally push the hot dog price up, he didn't hedge, he didn't say, "We're evaluating it." He just said, "No." One word. Because by then, the hot dog wasn't a menu item anymore. It was a promise. And breaking a 40-year promise in public would cost Costco more in trust than a price hike could ever earn back in profit. Meanwhile, watch what Costco is willing to change instead. In early 2025, they quietly ended a decade-long partnership with Pepsi and switched every food court in the country over to Coca-Cola. A full beverage supplier swap, nationwide, barely a ripple in the news cycle. That's the tell. Costco will renegotiate an entire soda contract with one of the largest companies on the planet before it lets that $1.50 sticker move by a nickel. So the hot dog was never really about the hot dog. It's a fixed point Costco built its entire credibility around, backed by its own factories, its own supply chain, and a founder who was willing to threaten murder to defend it, at least a little bit seriously. Every other price in that building can move. Chicken bakes go up. Soda suppliers get swapped out overnight. Even the can gets replaced with a bigger cup if it saves a fraction of a cent. But that one number, $1.50, stays exactly where it was the day Ronald Reagan was in office. Because the day it moves, Costco isn't just raising $1.50. It's telling 130 million members that the promise was never real, that the whole thing was negotiable all along. And once a company built entirely on trust admits that, there's no discount deep enough to buy that trust back. That's the actual price of a Costco hot dog. Not $1.50. Everything.